One of the great immune boosters that we have is fermented vegetables. They're not super common in our culture today, and they really are an acquired taste, but I feel like it doesn't take that much of the stretch of imagination or even that much exposure to get an acquired taste for them. They're really pretty great. Today I'm gonna start off with the easiest fermented vegetable that I know, which is a sauerkraut. Try it out, it really is great, and there's a lot more usages for it than I thought there originally were. So here we go. All right, first things first, we need to take off one cabbage leaf and set it off to the side. I forget to do this more times than not, but it's so helpful when I do remember. And next we're gonna take our cabbages and we're just gonna slice them up into little strips about 1/2 inch or less thick. All right, next you can see we've got all of our cabbage split up here. And it's, a little bit thinner than my finger, each strip here. I gotta say, even if you don't think you liked sauerkraut before, try this. Cabbage is so cheap, and what have you got to lose? You've got all this extra time anyways, right? Try sauerkraut out. So take about 2 tablespoons of salt and just put it all over your cabbage. And next what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on starting to massage out this cabbage and get the salt to react to it to release some water. And that water that it releases is going to be the brine that we're gonna use to ferment this cabbage. So we're going to increase the vitamins and nutrients and the good bacteria that this plant has by fermenting it and giving ourselves some extra good things to have in our bodies because of it. Go ahead. All right, so as you can see, the cabbage has flattened out quite a bit. It used to be all the way up here to the top. And you can see there's a bit of wateriness that's gotten on here because the salt has released the water. We're almost to the point where we can start to stuff it into our container. What we need to be able to see is this pool of water down here. See how much water is pooled in there? It's pretty awesome. And that's what we're gonna be looking for in order to put it into our container. I'm just gonna go for a couple more minutes to make sure I have plenty of that brine, and then we'll stuff it into. All right, so now we've started to fill in our container with all this cabbage. It might look like this all isn't going to fit, and to be honest, probably a little bit won't, but we'll show you how to solve that problem later. But we're going to start packing it in here and just pushing it down as we go. Then we're going to take a tool like this and we're going to start pounding it down into the container like this to try to get that juice released. Sometimes it takes a bit of time for the salt to really work on the leaves as well to get all of that juice out. But it'll happen, just give it a little bit of time. All right, as you can see, as I keep pushing it down, trying to get all the air pockets out and trying to get the juice levels up, starting to get a good pool of brine at the top here. So we're gonna keep working that to make sure we get even more. Then I'll show you the next step. All right, as you can see, I've got a bunch of brine that's been up on the top since I've pushed everything down into the container and tried to squeeze out as much air as I can. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna fill a plastic bag with some water. And normally you could use something like a weight, but there's like really cool specific weights you can even get for fermenting vegetables. And when the store is open again, man, I'm getting one. But for now, this is what I have to work with. So I'm gonna move the baby's hands out of the way. And what I'm gonna do is stick this plastic bag in here. You think that's yours? You're mistaken. And I'm going to just kind of push it to make sure that as much of the brine is up over the sauerkraut as possible, like this. And so it's fully immersed in there. And once I've got that, then I can make sure that the bad bacteria that could grow in there would be in the air. It wouldn't be in liquid. Let's see, we're done now. We're gonna stick this in. So you can see this is pushing up the brine up so it'll be completely covered. And then we're just gonna leave them on the counter for a few days, and you're gonna see some cool bubbles that are gonna kind of come up, and I'll show you what those look like. And eventually, about 3 or 4 days, we'll start to taste it and see what it's like. You know what I didn't do? Because I always forget, stick these on top. Let's do that one more time. We are going to stick these cabbage leaves on top because it helps to keep all the little bits down. And then we'll stick in the bags like so. All fully covered, and we're good again. All right, we've had some decent movement with this sauerkraut, as you can see. There's a lot of bubbles that are being pushed up here. That's carbon dioxide releasing. This is like, I don't know, I think it's really cool science to see as an adult or a kid, and my kids and I really enjoy watching these. So you can see my brine level has also increased simply because it sat here for quite a while. I probably don't even need these bags here. This one looks like I could still use the bag to keep the water levels up, but this one probably isn't even needed anymore since my levels are so high. I'm just gonna keep it there just for safekeeping anyway, and then I'll close it up and save my gasket on the top. I noticed that with my plastic bags, they were starting to leak a little bit off onto the counter. A lot of the CO2 is pushing it up, and I realized there wasn't enough weight on top, so I switched over to having some jars on top. Oftentimes I'll do jars or plastic bags, but because I think I filled these ones up so high, they've just kind of needed a little bit more something. Plus I got it too warm in my kitchen, and so they they definitely were fermenting like crazy. But the other fun thing you can do with the jars is you push down on them and you can kind of see the bubbles start to come up, and that's fun to do too. Finally, on day 5, I can see that my water here is all murky. This brine has really started to brine. I've also tasted the kraut and it's got a tanginess to it. So I know now it's done. To store it in the fridge will help to stop the rest of the fermentation so it doesn't just keep getting sour and sour. Plus it stores longer there. You can store this like this in your fridge for like a year. And so I'm gonna take these out and I'm putting in these water bags to help to keep the water above. Before, when I put the water bags in, I wasn't really thinking about how I needed to keep the CO2 from pushing the water bag out, and it really needed the weight at the jars. So that's just me forgetting my system and yada yada. But here's how it'll work. I need to add a little bit more water to this bag to make sure that the brine is covering this jar better, like this one. And then I'll stick them all in the fridge. I've also put on my rubber gasket because I want to make sure I can keep this smelling, because to be honest, fermented vegetables have a particular smell. But here they are. Hope you've enjoyed this little adventure in making sauerkraut.